Imagine spending your childhood being abused so much that without realizing it, you learn to abuse yourself. You not only learn to treat yourself with contempt, hate, and disgust, but you also accept other people treating you like that. This entity that skilled abusers can program into the brains of their victims is called the inner critic. This critic is a bully, built and customized just for you, and it knows how to take you down every single time. As long as that bully lives inside your head, you will live inside a nightmare with no end in sight. Sounds painful, doesn't it? That is how I have lived most of my life, suffering in silence. Here's the thing that the inner critic inside your head does not want you to know. It doesn't have to be like this. Healing is possible. It is not a cure. It is a long process. And if you can commit to it, the day will arrive when you start noticing the bully is not as powerful as you think. Today, I want to spend this season 2 finale episode talking about the inner critic that has plagued my trauma brain for years and how I have progressed in healing from this inner bully. Also, I will reflect on the achievements of the podcast so far and what is coming next for Hello Trauma Brain and my healing journey. Hi, I am Raysa, a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and you are listening to Hello Trauma Brain, a podcast where I share my experiences living with complex PTSD. My hope is this podcast can help destigmatize mental illness and provide support to anyone diagnosed with C-PTSD who thinks they might have it or has a loved one with this diagnosis. Quick reminder, I am not a licensed psychologist or mental health care professional, and this podcast is not meant to replace nor substitute the care of psychologists, other mental or medical health care professionals. If you think you might have complex PTSD or any of the conditions or disorders mentioned in this podcast, please reach out to your primary care or mental health care provider. Any individuals or resources mentioned in this podcast are not sponsoring Hello Trauma Brain. This episode may reference trauma or abuse, and listener discretion is advised. Remember, you can always pause or skip this episode at any time. And now, let's get back to the episode. Hello, dear survivors, and welcome to this episode of Hello Trauma Brain. Thank you for joining me today. If you are listening on YouTube, a gentle reminder to hit the like button and subscribe to let me know this episode was helpful. I want to welcome any newbies and returning listeners to this season finale. I know we are wrapping season 2 of Hello Trauma Brain. The check-in for this week is that I'm having a lot of feelings about this. I need the hiatus to recoup, recharge. I feel like the past few weeks I've been hustling to get the podcast done and I'm kind of running out of battery. If I am honest, producing the episodes the past few weeks has been difficult. I've had a lot of OCD come up. I feel like I am running on fumes and the battery needs to be recharged. And it is really weird how this works because I've been telling myself, we only have a few weeks left. I can do it. We're almost there. And as the time is approaching, I'm having feelings about not having the podcast and taking a break and not having that one thing I need to do every week. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And of course, I'm getting episode ideas. And then I'm having the panic of what if I forget the episode idea? What if we cannot fit it in next season? Maybe we should do more episodes. All the things. I'm going through it. And this is on top of the fact that I am currently going through a bit of a period of aggravation on my symptoms. The work that I've been doing lately is really stirring the pot. And I'm having the mixed bag of having the urgency to figure things out right away and figure out a way to deal with these things immediately alongside the trying to give myself self-compassion because I don't know what to do just yet, and I'm going to figure it out, and it's going to be a long process, and it just feels overwhelming to say the least. Let's see. Pride is coming to an end too, even though I've been trying to tell my inner kiddo that we can celebrate Pride all the time. It doesn't have to be just in the month of June. And we've been going to events, and that has been exciting and also complicated because it's like a new thing. It's like new people, and some of the people can be triggering. And it's a lot. And also, I'm ready for community. So, like, I want to take the risk and I want to get to meet people. Meeting people is going to trigger relational trauma because I am a survivor of relational trauma. And it's just, whew, it's a lot. Sounds like a lot because it is. And it feels like it right now. And I also have to admit that I am doing things that I wouldn't have done before, like reaching out for help and doing the somatic exercises that have been helpful to help me regulate. And I can feel the regulation, I can feel the progress for a second, and then 2 hours later, I'm right back in it. And yeah, even a recent post that I did on Instagram, I took a risk. I did a post using a song from the band Haim called Everybody's Trying to Figure Me Out. And I kind of used the song to reenact what it feels like to be doing a pep talk before setting boundaries, especially as a trauma survivor. Because setting boundaries for people like me is hard. Doesn't even matter if the person in front of me is safe or they have shown signs of safety time and time again. Setting a boundary is like setting everything on fire. And it's really feeling like that right now. And it's interesting because I did that post, and I'm not gonna lie, I've been watching it today for me to like remind myself that even though it feels and I think I'm gonna die, I'm not going to. Setting a boundary is not gonna kill me. Whew. Dear goodness, there's just like, yeah, I'm going through it. And I have to say, I'm very ready to take a break and get things sorted out. And it's not like I'm going to figure my life out during the hiatus and I'm going to come back next season with all the solutions. But I really think that taking some time to slow down, honor what I need and feel, and get ready to do the next season is exactly what I need right now. True story. The stand for the microphone broke in the last episode. So I'm going to have to hold this microphone for the rest of the episode, and hopefully it's not going to be an issue. All right, I think I'm ready to dive into this episode. So today I want to talk about the inner critic. This is something coined by Pete Walker. He is the author of Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving. Pete has other books too, but this book in particular is basically the 101 on C-PTSD, the book that put C-PTSD on the map. Pete is also the person who coined the fawning response. Pete is instrumental when it comes to complex PTSD content. Full disclosure, I haven't finished his book. I started it, and I'll share where or when I stopped. I was in a chapter where there were some affirmations to tell the inner child, and I was bawling so hard by the end of the affirmations, and it was so overwhelming emotionally speaking. And then after that, I didn't touch the book, and before I knew it, months and months and months have passed by, and I do need to get back to it. It was one of those things where like my nervous system was very overwhelmed, and of course I wanted to avoid it, and I did. But I want to prioritize that book this year. Hopefully during the hiatus I can make some progress because I feel like the time has arrived for me to face the music with the rest of that book. Recently, my therapist actually sent me an article by Pete. We're working on the inner critic, and I also cried during the article. But I feel like even the way that I was able to manage getting emotional about it and feeling it and still finishing the article was an indication that I might be more ready for this. Also, if I am honest, I wanted to finish that article in preparation for this episode because it kind of links together. That article talks about the inner critic and how the inner critic is created. And I feel like a part of me maybe had heard this before, but it had not clicked. The reason I want to make the episode on the inner critic is to share something I realized about it recently in therapy. I have been doing the inner child work for a long time. And for the longest time, like I didn't realize that the inner critic was not related to the inner child in terms of they're not the same thing. So my therapist was giving me psychoeducation recently, and she was like, yeah, the inner critic is a separate entity, a separate voice. And this one is a bully. This is the one that we need to work on because it's bullying the inner child and me essentially too. And it kind of blew my mind to think about it that way because I don't know. I thought it was just the inner child, and this inner critic was this voice that there's no way of making it go away. It will always be there. And maybe in some ways, it will be there in the background in some way or another, even if I heal or make more progress in my healing. I feel like the understanding that the inner child is not the inner critic, and that the inner critic is this bully that was programmed there by the original abusers has been a bit of the mic drop moment in my healing recently. And I feel like that has been crucial in fighting back the inner critic and its vicious attacks. And part of how I am even noticing this change coming into play in my psyche is even in tracking how my dreams have changed. Like yesterday, I had this, it was like a dream slash nightmare. I don't remember all of my dreams all the time, but when I went no contact, a lot of dreams were about me getting hurt or seeing people getting hurt. And we're talking like fatal outcomes in the dream. So it was very unsettling and very distressful. And for a long time, even though the nightmares have subsided, occasionally they peak up again with something that's very distressful for me. But yesterday, last night, and I'm finding interesting that that even happened right before I record this episode. Last night, I had a completely different dream that I've never had before. And what I'm finding interesting is how this dream that I had last night is basically manifesting or reenacting an exercise I got from therapy, which is to talk back and fight back against the inner critic. And I will elaborate that later in this episode. But the exercise kind of got reenacted in my dream. So I was having this dream that I was somewhere and an old friend of mine and their mom was there, and somebody else, I can't remember who the third person was, but they all had laptops. And I very quickly noticed that the laptop was playing some sort of message that was religious against LGBTQIA plus people. And I immediately was like, hell no. And I realized this was supposed to be some sort of intervention for me. And I go into the bathroom, and at this point, I'm like, not fucking doing this. And I'm picking up my stuff and I start to walk away, and I'm heading towards the door, and I could hear my friend telling their mom, just let it go. Don't go. Don't do it. Just let it go. Let her be. And I could tell that person was getting up and coming towards me to confront me. And as I was heading towards the door, I was making a plan in my head like, okay, as soon as I am outside, if they follow me outside, I'm going to start screaming and yelling help. And I'm going to be so loud that they will have to walk away because it's going to be embarrassing as fuck if people come out and see them doing what they're doing. And I had the plan already in my head, and before I could reach the door, I woke up. My alarm woke me. And I found that very interesting because that is the first time ever that I can remember where I had a dream where I was actually empowered. Like usually if I have a nightmare with previous people in my life that I am not talking to, the dynamic we had before is playing again. So I'm fawning and they're doing their thing and I'm trying to figure out how to survive the encounter. But I don't even know if I've had the awareness of being empowered or knowing that I was fawning in the dream. I just know that the dynamic had replayed. And this is the first time where I was like, fuck no, I'm walking away. And I was making a plan, like a safety plan for me. And I have to say, that's big. That's so big. Given my history, yeah, I'm kind of glad that I'm talking about it here so I can listen back to it and take in that stuff. The stuff is working. It's a struggle, but it does change things. And if you go back in time in the podcast, like this is not happening at the time. This is happening now. So let's talk a little bit more about the inner critic and how does it get created to begin with. If you are new to CPTSD gets created in so many ways. Think of it like a customized plan to traumatize a person. And every person who developed C-PTSD got there in a very different way, and we all have different ways in which we heal. What works for me doesn't work for somebody else, and vice versa. And there are some cases where something might work for me and someone else, and some cases where we're all in agreement that it didn't work. It's complicated, to say the least. The inner critic is this entity that gets created by very abusive people. And based on what I know and how my experience has been, this is something that gets implanted and programmed very early on. So early on that you don't know what not having a life without an inner critic is, or what does it feel like. You have to imagine having people abuse you so hardcore, so viciously, with so much hate, contempt, just utter disregard for your well-being, to the point when your brain starts registering those messages as the truth. And when you hear something enough times, you start to believe it. And imagine during your developmental years having people around you that are treating you so poorly, so bad, that you somehow register in your brain that this is all there is, and this is the best you're gonna get, and this is how you're supposed to be treated. And even as an adult now, as I realize that it was a shitty way to be treated, when your inner critic is getting set in place, it is this entity that gets programmed in your brain. And the goal of this inner critic is to bully the fuck out of you for as long as you live. And it will use all the hurtful things your abusers ever said about you. The inner critic will remember that and will use that information to hurt you over and over again. And it will repeat the same things they say, and the stuff that they said that is the most hurtful, that is going to be the message it will repeat the most to you as well. It's horrible. It's a horrible way to live. It's a horrible way to exist. And the thing with the inner critic is it doesn't let you experience joy. So every time I experience joy, that inner critic is there like clockwork, ready to knock it down. And then it follows it by making me feel shame for the fact that I couldn't even hold on to joy. To me, the inner critic is where toxic shame thrives. It's like pals with toxic shame. And if anything, it uses toxic shame to make the message hurt more and to condition it strongly. Like the goal of my inner critic is to convince me that I am not good enough, that I am a failure, that I am not deserving of love, not true love. Shitty love, abusive love, yeah, that's all I deserve apparently. According to it, that's it. True love that's respectful and kind and honors boundaries and takes my well-being into account, nope, that ain't for me. According to the inner critic, I don't deserve that. That's what it wants me to think. And it shows up all the time, even in this podcast. The sucker doesn't let it up. And the podcast is a beautiful thing. I get to practice having a voice here. I get to share my story and share my experiences to help other people. That is so wonderful. And I love that I get to do that. And it's an honor and a privilege. And I don't take it for granted that you're listening and that this is important. But also, the podcast can be fucking triggering. Making a podcast as a survivor of complex trauma, think about it. I am literally creating an entire episode every time. And I'm coming up with the idea, I am recording the thing, I am editing the thing, come up with a title, I set it up for release, I create a clip or two to promote the episode, I am throwing it out there, releasing it into the vast World Wide Web. I have an Instagram account with followers. The thing with the followers is it's very easy. It's very easy to have one number take you down. So let's just say I got 3 more followers and I'm super excited about it. And then like a few weeks later, I see that I dropped 1 follower. I'm working on it. I'm getting better at it, but I'm not gonna lie. It's triggering. It's triggering when you see that number go down because the inner critic latches onto that shit like candy. And it's like, see, you pissed somebody off. I wonder if it was the queer episode. That's the shit that it says. And I have to constantly go, even if it was the queer episode. If that was the reason, I'm glad they're not following anymore. That's not for them. It could be any reason. They accidentally clicked on the wrong button. If it's Instagram, I know that if you deactivate your account, it's gonna remove the follow. Like there's so many factors outside of my existence. The likelihood that I lose a follower and it's unrelated to me is possible. most times it could be about me, it could not be about me. Here's the thing, I'm trying to work on this very hard, on having the belief and embracing the belief that I am not going to lose my goodness and the progress I've made because X amount of followers decided to unfollow the content. But let me tell you, it's still triggering. Like the concept of posting and seeing one post do better than the other, that triggers the what did I do wrong with the other ones? Did I fail? I did well 2 weeks ago. Now I'm not. What's going on? Like all that stuff is very triggering and it makes it very hard to be in this type of space as a survivor of trauma. And I know I'm not alone in this. And the reason I know is because I see other content creators talking about this. In fact, there's one person I follow, Nick Werber. He's going to be releasing a whole workshop on social media for highly sensitive people. And it sounds like a great match to me. And I don't think I'm going to be able to make that workshop work right now, but it's on the list of things that I want to work towards being able to access because honestly, it's like exactly what I need. Content like that to help me navigate a triggering space of social media because social media's triggering doesn't matter who you are. If you're a human being with feelings and a heart and a brain, an ego that can get bruised, you're gonna feel it. But I feel like for me in particular, it's even more visceral and it can be very dangerous if I don't have the right tools to manage it. So that's one way the inner critic gets in the way of the podcasting. It shows up in every other aspect of my life. Every time I look in the mirror, when I'm out in public, it goes over everything I ever say to anyone. If I said something with the quote unquote wrong tone or a tone that I know would have triggered one of my abusers, the inner critic is very fast to remind me now, even though I haven't talked to these people in a few years now, which is crazy to say, but yeah, time is flying. It feels like it goes slow sometimes, and then all of a sudden it's like a boost, and you're like, how did I get to a year later? So yeah, if you've ever heard that voice inside your head that is bashing you and treating you with so much hate and in the most unkind way, that's the inner critic. And let me tell you, ever since I got that added layer of this is not just the inner critic, this is the inner bully, a bully that is literally customized for me, made by all the abusers I had in my life, reinforced by the other abusers I attracted because I didn't know that I was being abused. So I kept accepting abuse left and right from so many people. So many people. I honestly have lost count. Too many. And the thing with the inner critic is it keeps you stuck in this cycle of accepting abuse, accepting poor treatment. And the sad part is that it's self-abuse. This voice is inside my head. My brain was programmed to abuse me. And I just realized as I am talking about this that this is a bit of a universal experience that is all over media. Have you ever heard that song that has a line or the movie that has that one character say, "You're your own worst enemy. You are your own worst critic"? Because all my life, I have been able to say that. Like, nobody treats me worse than myself. And let me tell you, my abusers eat cake and have it. And the way I have treated myself sometimes makes them look like nothing. I have treated myself in ways that I should have never. And I have to look back and like give myself compassion because that is all I knew. That's all I knew. When I made a mistake, I learned that severe punishment was what came. So when nobody punished me, I punished myself. Sad. So sad and so damaging, and it has held me back for so many years. So many years. Which is why fighting the inner critic matters so much. Yes, it sucks. Yes, it has a lot of years on us in terms of practice and mastery of the craft of bullying people, especially ourselves, right? This is a customized bully that knows where every single button is because my abusers made sure it knew not only where they are, but how to press them. Sounds very doom and gloomish. Yeah, but let me tell you something else. This fucking thing, this bully who thrives in silence, in the dark, and marinating me in shame, it only gets to keep doing the job for as long as my self-protection, my self-compassion, and my healthy anger continue to be offline. It is really hard and painful to come to terms with the fact that I was abused so much. I couldn't develop a sense of self-protection. I couldn't develop a healthy fight response that allows me to say no, that allows me to protest abuse and to demand to be treated with love, kindness, civility, all the good things that I deserve. My birthright, my right as a human being from the moment I was born, stolen away and replaced with the opposite: abuse, shame, toxic shame, not just shame, toxic shame, and the instinct of turning on myself, which is unnatural and fucked up. And realizing that I have this inner child inside of me, getting abused by this inner bully inside of me, when I take in that that's what's happening, now that helps me get motivated to do something about it. It's sad that this is the way my brain works, but I am much better at advocating for other people. That is why I'm able to do work like this. And I have found myself in my life taking roles where I am advocating for other people. I get outraged for other people. If I hear someone else is getting abused, I get angry and I'm like, not in my fucking watch. And that protection that I don't have for myself gets turned on. So how do you get a survivor who has no self-protection to start developing some? I'm gonna start separating the entities inside of that survivor. And one of them is this innocent inner child that needs protection. And I can see the inner child as this entity I need to protect. I am becoming more able to step up to the plate. That if I hear the typical things they say about like, just have self-love and meditate and just take care of yourself and prioritize yourself. That's great advice for other people. But someone with trauma like me, what the fuck does that mean? How do you prioritize yourself if you have no self-protection? If you have no innate capacity of treating yourself well? When you have been programmed not only to think you deserve abuse, but to also accept abuse. So for trauma survivors, there's always an extra step. And the extra step for me is think of the inner child as this kid you need to protect. And the moment I started to think about it that way, I started to fight back against the inner critic. And the inner critic is showing up all the time. Doesn't give a shit that I hit record on the episode. It has shown up a bunch of times already and I've had to pause to take care of it. And here's how I am fighting back. I am telling the inner critic to fuck off constantly. I'm even using the sign from the Hunger Games. If you've seen the movies or have read the books, is like raising your index, middle, and ring finger. You raise those three fingers up and it's like a sign of like the Mockingjay and rebellion and fighting back against the toxic, abusive system that was in that story. And I've been using it to fight against the toxic inner critic. And I'm even realizing now as I'm recording this that I'm angry at the fact that I went no contact to stop the abuse from happening. And this entire time, so far, the inner critic has made sure that abuse keeps getting piled on because it's still bullying me, even when I went no contact. And granted, the reason I can even access my anger is all the work that I have been doing all these years, including the fact that I went no contact. But to realize that, to take in, fuck, that is why it's still so hard, because I have technically been suffering bullying and abuse from this thing inside my own head. Fuck, you know? I'm kind of glad that I'm finally entering this stage in my healing. Like, it's taking me a long time to access my actual anger. And I'm not done crying and grieving about what happened to me. But I feel like lately, I'm starting to feel the anger too and the outrage about how fucking bad I've been treated. Like, I have been telling myself this story that I was abused, but I saw more abuse done to others. I am finally starting to come to terms recently with the fact that I was just as abused. I was abused just as badly. And in many ways, some of the stuff that happened to me I'm starting to realize it was even more fucked up than the other things that I was quote unquote calling more abusive. Because had it been clear cut that I was being abused, I would have probably started this whole process way sooner and I would have cut the cord way sooner. But I didn't because I didn't even realize it was abuse. Or sneaky. So the exercise is when you notice the inner critic, if you are able right then and there, either in your head or out loud, tell them to fuck off. And you can say it in whatever way feels good to you. Shut up, get the fuck out of here, fuck off, I hate you, stop bullying this child. Say it. Say it. And at the beginning, it might sound weird, but eventually you will start feeling the conviction. And if it helps you, imagine this little kid that's getting bullied by this fucking thing. And you're responsible to protect that child. And you're not going to let that child get bullied anymore. And I've been doing that and I am experiencing more anger. And I'm also starting to experience a sense of awareness about my self-protection. Like I can notice the moments where I didn't protect myself and I didn't know how to protect myself. But now this is what protection looks like. Like this is what I've been lacking this entire time. The ability to stand up for myself. Because this kid is me. At the end of the day, the kid is me. We're all the same entity. The one that doesn't belong here is the fucking inner critic. That's not us. That's the voice and the entity programmed by my abusers. That they can fucking take with them. I don't want it. I don't want it. In the spirit of countering this inner critic, I want to devote time today to talk about the achievements of the podcast so far as part of the season finale. It is not all doom and gloom. I want to recognize the things that I have achieved because I have been working so hard. And even though I still struggle and I still have my moments, one thing is true. I have come a long way. I have put a lot of resources into this healing. I have been relentless. I have kept walking towards the fire and jumped off the cliff of not knowing what life after abuse can look like time and time again. And I am not going to stop now. And my inner critic might not agree. I don't give a shit. I think that I have made an impact. I am proud of myself. I have made 2 full seasons. By the time you hear this, I will be able to say I finished 2 full seasons of a podcast by myself. I designed the logo and the artwork with Procreate, no training whatsoever on how to do digital media. I just drew something that resonated with me. I came up with a title. I came up with music and I recorded it in my living room, and I've been recording this podcast in my apartment and releasing it. And I started doing the whole thing in GarageBand with like no shortcuts and not understanding what I was doing. I now use Logic Pro and I have learned so many shortcuts and so many ways of speeding up the process. I got a new microphone for this season. So the old microphone made editing even more tedious. This has sped up the process for me and it looks more professional on the video episodes. I have come up with the episode ideas and I have poured my heart and soul and even done video episodes with guests, which let's just take a moment and like take in the fact that I have brought in guests, y'all. Guests. People that have agreed to have a conversation with me and who have gifted their expertise and their insights to further the vision of helping others. I have had people reach out to me and send me messages. I've had therapists, like professionals in the field, reach out to me to rave about the podcast, which is wild. I've had people comment on the podcast or leave a review or give it a 5-star. I have had actual survivors reach out to tell me that the podcast is impactful, shared how my story paralleled theirs. And it's always wild to me how similar our stories are sometimes. I've done all that. I set out to help one person. One person. As of recently, last time I checked the numbers between the 3 main platforms, this is not counting any smaller platforms, between Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. The podcast has been played over 8.4 thousand times. More than 8,400 plays? What? This is episode 68. How do I have over 8,000 views? I was going to say ridiculous, but you know what? I'm going to say amazing. That's amazing. Fuck. The podcast has charted well in the past. I cannot see the charts anymore because Chartable, which was the free tool I used to use, went away. And anything else that I'm finding, I have to pay money for it. So I'm going to hold off. And I don't know how the podcast has done with charts one way or another. But the fact that I even saw charts at one point in time is incredible. I even realized this with Apple Podcasts recently. When I charted in the past, it was through Apple Podcasts. And for the longest time, I was like, how is this possible? Because the numbers don't look that big to me. I don't know if I was doing it correctly before and then I forgot how it works. But recently I was looking at the numbers and I was like, it looks pretty low. And then I realized that was the listeners I was looking at, not the actual place. And then I click on the place and it's like a bunch more. And I'm like, wow, like I guess that makes sense now how I charted in the past. Wild. This DIY project in my living room. My story has inspired other people. During season 2, a professional, a therapist who specializes in OCD, wrote an article inspired on one of my posts on Instagram. That was Dr. Michael Alsay. Recently, I had a licensed clinical social worker, Raysa writes, reach out to me to ask for my permission to share one of my posts because she found it very inspiring, baffled. And it's funny, these two professionals both mentioned my singing voice being something that they found very inspiring too, and just as impactful as my speaking voice. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I am finally feeling that same pull that drove me towards starting the podcast, but is coming really strongly for my singing. For the longest time, I have not been prioritizing my singing, and I have a lot of singing trauma that I'm still recovering from, but I feel like I'm starting to get ready to start sharing my actual music, my original songs in my voice. And I feel like the universe has been sending a lot of signs lately to let me know or remind me that my singing is very aligned with my authentic self and it could be a powerful tool. And this feels very similar to how the podcast journey began. I had some people who suggested me starting a podcast, and I started to feel the calling inside me. And I remember running into a lot of content at the time from people saying that more survivor stories are needed and more voices from the actual survivors with C-PTSD who have survived narcissistic abuse. And I was like, I think the universe is trying to tell me something. And I feel that again. I am baffled every time people like Patrick Tehan or Ingrid Clayton share a post of mine. Let's just take a moment to even take in that Dr. Ingrid Clayton was on the podcast. Oh my gosh. Every time one of you follows, shares, likes, listens, my mind is blown. I am working on episode 68. 68 episodes. Full episodes. And even though there are episodes that have more listens than others, and my inner critic loves to show up, especially when the episodes are not doing quote unquote as well as others, these 2 seasons feel like a lifetime with all the changes that have happened, all the things I've learned about myself. I've lost people, I've gained people, then lost a few more. I want to take a moment to thank you for your presence, for listening, for helping this content reach other people. This content is not easy. There are so many podcasts out there. The fact that you're choosing mine means the world to me. I don't think thank you captures what I feel towards all of you. Given this is season 2's finale, I want to recognize the guests that came on for season 2. Bonny, Casey Smith, Benjamin Allen, Ali Boyce, and Dr. Ingrid Clayton. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for taking your time and choosing this platform to share your voice and your insights. Your presence here has been a gift, not only to me, but to anyone who has been able to listen to your episodes. Thank you. And this also goes for all the guests that were on season 1. I am proud of every single episode. Every single one. Every episode has my heart and all my love. And though the inner critic loves the numbers, they don't matter at the end of the day. I am really proud of what I have created. I have poured my heart and soul into this podcast. And though the inner critic wants me to think that it doesn't matter, I know deep down it does. And I know that it's making a difference. And I have achieved what I have set myself out to do. I wanted to help at least one survivor. And I know I've helped more than one at this point. I also want to reflect on the journey so far and the progress that I have made. I remember the first time I made a mistake on an episode, and I made a whole episode about that whole ordeal of how it was like to make a mistake and deal with the trigger of making a mistake. And that was back in season 1. Even recently, I made posts for the Bluey episodes, and I basically made the one and then I recycled it for the part 2. And I realized a few days ago that I misspelled Bluey, the name Bluey, on the promo. And it's on the still image, so I cannot change it without taking the post down. And I had a moment there where I was like, how did I how did I miss the why? How did that happen? I wonder if I wrote it and autocorrect fixed it, or I missed it. I don't know. It's not there. And I had the moment, and then I thought, I'll just make a note on the caption. And I edited the post, and on the bottom I added something saying, yep, I misspelled it and I can't fix it. So there it is. And just taking in that was it. It wasn't a whole episode and weeks on end of toxic shame. How could I do this to Bluey? And the episode and the podcast, and forever my shame will be out there. It's like, yeah, sometimes I see it and I remember and I go, man, that's that sucks. To allow myself to be human. I am a human being who misspells things, makes mistakes, someone who mispronounces things, hurt other people, even if it's unintentional. I'm human. I've been a human who didn't know how to be a human for so long, and I'm learning to be a human for the first time ever, a kind human. And when I say kind, I mean to myself. I am not known to be unkind to other people. That's not my motto. Have I been unkind to other people? Sure. But the person that I have treated the worst, the most poorly, it has always been me. And I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to live like that anymore. I'm sick of it. It's caused me so much pain and suffering, and I'm done. And even though I cannot turn it off like a light switch, I will do whatever it takes to stop abusing myself, to stop unknowingly abusing myself. I don't want the inner critic to keep bullying me anymore. I don't want to let it bully my inner kiddo. I don't want to let it bully me. I feel like I'm getting ready to take more risks with the podcast and make more posts and make more things. I feel like I've had ideas in the past, but I get scared of posting and scared of succeeding. And, I don't want that much attention. And part of me doesn't want to draw attention because I don't want the abusers to start up again, or I don't want for new abusers to come my way, because I am very aware that there are a lot of cyber bullies out there and I am scared. But I also don't want to let them keep me small. I don't want to let my abusers or any potential abusers keep me in the shadows, tiny, scared to talk, scared to exist. I don't want to let them make me disappear. I'm done. I want to be done with disappearing and being small. I want to take risks. I want to live my life. May I be able to handle whatever comes from it. And with that, I want to transition into what is coming ahead. I want to give you a sneak peek of the things that are on deck for me. I usually wait for things to be finished and published before I say anything, a little bit out of superstition. But I kind of want to give you a sneak peek, and I'm just going to say what's coming up. And if anything falls through, then that's okay. So something that I did over a year ago was write an article for a magazine. I was approached by the Healing and C-PTSD Chronicles to write an article, and I did. And the article was supposed to come out in the spring of 2025, a few months ago, but things have happened and the deadline has been pushed. And I'm not sure when exactly the article is going to come out. It is supposed to be in the summer issue, so hopefully you'll be able to read this very soon. But I don't have an exact date as I sit here today. So here's the sneak peek. The article is called Listening to My Screaming Body. As I get ready for this article to be released, I am aware that a lot of things have changed since I wrote this article. And I feel like the article might be very different had I written it now as opposed to when I did. The way I want to fight back against the inner critic when it comes to this article is in allowing myself to be a beginner, a beginning writer. This is my first article ever written for anything. And it's gonna be a first article. The first article is never going to be the same as the 100th article. And I have to start somewhere. And what I'm going to be practicing with this article is allowing my beginner to be accepted as she is, and to allow myself to have a process in terms of learning from the first article for when I write my next one. I recently agreed to be a part of a Q&A series for a blog. The blog is called About That Jack. I have the questions already, and I am going to be working on submitting my answers after the finale is released, and I'll keep you posted. I really want to finish the theme song for Hello to My Brain, a song that's going to be featuring the music you hear through the podcast. I'll give you a sneak peek on the title of the song, at least the working title right now, which is Choosing Me. That title came right from the get-go, and I have not felt the need to change it, so I think that's really going to be it. But yeah, I'm going to try to figure out how to record this on my own using Logic Pro and seeing how I can do a digital release. And if all goes to plan, I would like for this to be released before season 3 starts in the fall. I just want to get the song out and not put myself under the pressure of doing like a few songs or something like that. I just want to be able to say one song is out and then I can work from there. Again, practicing being a beginner. Season 3 is most definitely going to happen starting in the fall. I don't have a date yet. Here is what you can expect from season 3. I do want to make a change in terms of the schedule for the podcast. I'm going to try the bi-weekly schedule. I'm a little bit nervous about it. I consider that for season 2 as well, but then I landed on having a lot of ideas and I didn't want to spread out the episodes at the time. But now, as I have been taking more risks in terms of going to events, trying to build community, and I am reaching this new phase in my healing journey, I feel like I need to start practicing doing things in a sustainable way. The thing with the weekly episodes is that there is not a lot of room for things to happen. So if I get sick or something happens in my life and things go disarray, there's not a lot of room for me to be able to handle whatever comes up and also finish the episode. And I feel like lately, one of the biggest signs that I might be ready for this is the fact that the episodes keep getting longer. And I feel like even this season, the episodes just kept getting longer organically. And a few times I had to split it into 2 parts. And when that happened, I'm not going to lie, I felt a little bit of shame. And as I have been reflecting, I landed at realizing that instead of seeing it as a failure, that I couldn't make this long episode happen in 1 week, maybe this is the sign that things are organically shifting for a bi-weekly schedule. So I think I'm going to give it a try next season and see how it goes. And I feel like that will allow me to continue to show up because I want to continue this podcast. And I want to do this in a way that allows healing and my life to occur alongside the podcast journey. I've been thinking about something I heard in a podcast, and this was something Elizabeth Ferreira said. She is a survivor with C-PTSD, also training to be a therapist. I feel like she might be already all done with her schoolwork. And her partner and fiance, Forrest, has a podcast called Being Well. P.S. Excellent podcast. And Elizabeth sometimes comes on. And one of the episodes with Elizabeth, she was talking about allowing herself to have accommodations. And something she said was, just because I can doesn't mean I should. Can I technically do the podcast every week? Yeah, I probably could. I could continue to do this for a while. Should I? I don't think so anymore. I think I need to start giving myself more space. So I'm going to practice that and see how it goes. So whenever the article, the Q&A series, and the song come out, I'll make a bonus announcement. I won't wait till the season starts in the fall. I'll let you know when it is available. I'm starting to feel ready to enrich my life a little bit more and start putting to practice all these things that I am learning and relate to people and practice the tough things like conflict and all the good stuff that comes with being a human being. And yeah, I will I will be sharing more of this in season 3. In this week's healing invitation, I want to offer you a few things to reflect about. Do you have an inner critic? If so, I encourage you to use Pete Walker's approach. See if you can notice this week when it pops up to say horrible things about you. Every time you notice it, you can tell it in your head or out loud to fuck off, shut up, say whatever feels good for you as a way of standing up against the inner critic's vicious attack. I invite you to hold on to this invitation for as long as you need it. I invite you to notice how things shift for you as you start doing this. A few things I have learned from doing this exercise. It feels really weird at first and it might stir the pot for you. And if you have a professional you are working with, I would suggest letting them know that you might be trying this and seeing what they recommend and getting them to guide you through something like this. I know a lot of you out there are not able to access a therapist, so please listen to your body, to your cues, and take breaks, pause, or shift things as you need. And this is something that you can try for a little bit, take a break, and resume at any time. Please let me know in the comments how this week's healing invitation goes if you choose to accept it. Before we wrap up this episode, all music and production is courtesy of yours truly. Also, I want to share a few ways you can support this podcast. You can subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or the platform that you are using to listen. Share this episode with anyone you think could find this podcast helpful. Subscribe to the Hello Trauma Brain YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when I post a new episode. And you can make a donation via PayPal. I want to thank you in advance for your support. A little can go a very long way in helping the podcast reach more survivors that could benefit from finding this content. No worries, all links will be provided in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today and for being a crucial part of season 2 of Hello Trauma Brain. It has been my honor to create this season and to share it with you. I hope you found this episode and this season helpful. I wish you the best as you reclaim your life back from your inner critic. It is time for our farewell affirmations. I invite you to repeat after me. I welcome the belief that I am enough. I am lovable. And I deserve to heal. I wish you a gentle week and thank you for your presence.